And I know that, Saturday, had these conversations on TV about football that he played. He did it on TV. He's had conversations on TV for 9 years about various teams. And I love this note from Ben Volen from the Boston Globe, where Saturday was on the air on a radio station at 9:30 Monday morning, breaking down the Colts-Patriots game as a media member. And then a couple hours later, he's a head coach. So, it seems easy. Oh, I do this, and the offensive line's a mess. They're not doing this right. They're not doing that. They got the wrong scheme. Then you get in there, and it's a completely different story. But I want to address something you said, and this is why
But let me say this real quick too. The other thing that bothered me in all this, that bothers me in this whole process, is if what Chris Ballard says is true, this is even more troubling, because he said in the press conference that they had reached out to Jeff a couple of times about being on the coaching staff previously.
Yeah.
And Jeff declined those offers. So what kind of privilege is it that you say, you know what, I got no interest in being your assistant coach and whatnot, but when you want to make me the top guy, I'm
right.
good.
That's right.
What kind of privilege is that, right?
Hey, by the way, what kind of contract did he sign? How much money are you making? That's what I want to know. What's his contract like? I mean, look, I always say it's easier. Right here, it's easier in the studio. You sit there in the studio, you're not getting, the hours are pretty good. You got a producer in your ear. You got the lights. They can get your good side if you have one. All the things, perfect conditions at all times. And then you break down the game. We're going to spend so much time talking about the game. And then you go home. It's so much easier than doing it. It's easier. So they must have enticed Saturday. It's not just the love of the Colts that got him out of that studio and got him to Indianapolis. But I want to say, you talked about, he's made some decisions. He's looked at sideways in Indianapolis, but he's not looked at sideways. Nobody looks at you sideways when they're looking top down. What I'm saying is all the decisions that he's made are coming from Irsay. So Irsay gave us a hint. He says the coaches are scared. They're driven by analytics. Okay? So he really bashed every coach on his staff, and look what happened. He's bashing the name coach. He's got two big-time coaches on his staff. One big-time. John Fox been to the Super Bowl, didn't win it, but been to the Super Bowl. He did win it. He did. So Fox Super Bowl winning head coach.
Been to two.
Yeah, been a couple Super Bowl, two different teams to the Super Bowl. Okay? You have Fox on the staff. You have Gus Bradley on the staff. He goes outside the organization. He brings in Saturday. Saturday names the assistant quarterback coach.
Quarterback coach, yep.
As the play caller. So in every opportunity Irsay had to go with what was there, he went outside. He could have gone with the quarterback coach. Nope, you're not going to call plays. Could have gone with one of these former coaches. Nope, you're not going to be an interim coach. And this is what I said this yesterday. The biggest tell that Saturday really has the ear of Jim Irsay. He says Sam Ehlinger is his quarterback. How do you know that? Why is that? He's not the best quarterback on the team. He's the most convenient quarterback for what the Colts are trying to do. But he's not the best quarterback. Are you kidding me? You come in, a real interim coach will come in and say, I haven't made any decisions. I need to see these guys in practice, and I'm going to go with who gives us the best chance to win, because we're 3-5-1. We've got 8 games left, and we still got a shot. No, he didn't say that because Irsay doesn't want him to say that. Anyway.
Let me say this to you.
Man.
You like famous lines, and I know with Michael Smith, you guys will do that pop culture at times with famous lines from movies. I'm going to give you a famous line that Marty Schottenheimer once gave me. And you have the same respect for Marty that I do.
I love Marty. Rest in power, Marty.
Marty, if you remember back in 2004, Drew Brees was coming off a terrible season, and the Chargers went out and made the draft day trade to get Phillip Rivers, 4th overall pick, right? So we go through training camp, And all of the veterans on the team believe that based on what they saw, not training camp, I'm sorry, in the offseason, what they saw in the offseason, that Phillip Rivers was going to be the starting quarterback over Drew Brees at that time. Phillip ends up holding out, can't get a contract done. So Drew starts the first game. They go down to to Houston. They win, but they don't play well, but they win. And so Marty has his press conference on Monday, and I go to see him. And I said, Marty, you understand that you could cost yourself your job here, the way this thing is going. And Marty said this, and then I'll give you the second thing he said to me I'll never forget. He said, Jim, if I'm going to F it up, I'm going to F it up my way. And he stayed with Drew Brees, and they ended up going to the playoffs that year. The other thing he said to me is he said, the lesson he learned from his 1 year in Washington was that ownership has its privileges. And Jim Irsay is showing us that ownership has its privileges. He doesn't care what we think. He doesn't care what the league thinks. He doesn't care what his coaches think. He doesn't care what his locker room thinks. He cares what Jim Irsay thinks. And that's why he went out and got a guy that he relates with, that he likes. And again, Jeff is a great guy, smart guy, passionate guy, strong in his convictions, all of those things. And Jim Irsay said, you know what? Meritocracy doesn't matter. Fairness doesn't matter. All that matters is what I want. And it's my team, so I'm going to do what I want. And he did what he wanted.
And we'll see how it turns out for the Indianapolis Colts. I think, Jim, I do think they have a great matchup on Sunday.
You're right.
Play the Raiders.
You see my feed.
Two struggling teams. And the Colts may have a little more bounce than the Raiders at this point.
I'm glad I'm going to the game. I'm glad I'm going because I want to see this up close.
Hey, thanks for watching Brother from Another on YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe before you leave, and be sure to watch us 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Peacock. Appreciate you.